What's up, folks? Hello, welcome to all of you who are watching this via replay, which is most of you. This is Existential Sunday. This is a space that we've kind of carved out for deconstructing, folks that are going through the process of deconstructing. If we don't know each other, my name is Corey. I'm a husband, I'm a father, podcaster, speaker, writer, and I host this broadcast every week called Existential Sunday, which is an extension of the podcast. So welcome to all of you who are joining for the first time today. Maybe never watched one before. Welcome, especially those of you watching replay. Those of you watching live, today I'm going to do something that I haven't done in a while. I'm actually going to say hi to you live. The first few in the comments, I'm actually going to say good morning to you. So if you're watching this via replay, this part's going to be a little boring. Maybe fast forward a little bit because I'm not interacting with you live. But if you comment, even on the replay, I'll come back later and say hello to you. So let me say hi. Good morning, Jerry, Anita. My baby Julie is here. Hey, Sarah, Brian, Alan, Ashley, Megan, good to see you. Who else is here this morning? Do some quick high fives. Kesha, good morning. Looks like I needed glasses. Like I can't see. Morning, Rosie. Who else is here? Who else? Carol, Tom, and I imagine Meg also. Lisa, Sherry, good morning. Good morning. Man, y'all are, good morning, Tony. People are like here this morning. Like y'all are actually here like on time. Good morning, Irma. Well, because it's Super Bowl Sunday. So, hey, Tabitha, many of you who are used to going to church, you used to just getting it out of the way. Just to go get it over with so you can watch the Super Bowl. I get it. I understand what's happening. All right. Morning, Matt. All right, I'm going to turn the comments off now. Otherwise, I'll be super distracted, which I already am distracted. So let me turn the comments on so I can focus. Okay, today is a little bit different because normally for Existential Sunday, around like Monday, Tuesday, sometimes even when I'm done on Sunday, I'm like, oh, I got this thing I want to talk about, right? I got this thing that's like burning in me to share. I had nothing all week long, all the way up until yesterday. And I kind of thought I had something forming, something that I've kind of been sitting on talking about for a while, which I'll give you just a hint at what one day I will actually talk about. May even come up today. I don't know, but I thought I had this, no pun intended, burning desire to talk about hell today. But it faded, fizzled, much like the concept of hell has in my mind. So like I didn't have that. And I woke up this morning like, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? What am I going to talk about? And then it just sort of dawned on me that I remember a couple weeks ago, I said, I'm going to tell you how I got here, because I had never done that for Existential Sunday. If you've listened to the podcast, or if you've heard me on other podcasts, people have often asked me basically for the story. You know, how do you go from evangelical Christianity, working at evangelical churches, to talking about social issues, social change, social justice, and specifically race, right? Especially the race part. That's a big question people have. How do you wind up talking about race so much? How did it become such a passion for you? I guess the practical answer is, like I told y'all last week, I got fired on my day off for stealing boxes. Actually, it wasn't my day off, and I wasn't stealing boxes. It's a Friday reference for any of you who've ever seen Friday. That's kind of a practical reason. But before that, let me go back before that and share with you really briefly the story, and then maybe a little bit as to why I think it's better to be in this space than the old space. But you know, who knows what we'll get to. So a few years back, I was invited to go to Israel, and it was like a moment. One of the most epic moments of my life was to go spend 10 days in Israel. And at this point, as pretty much a fundamentalist evangelical, I didn't know a lot about the history of the Christian faith. I didn't know a lot about, the history of the Bible. I didn't know a lot of those things. And so going to Israel was interesting because you kind of spend time like on the soil where the stories and poems and everything else that like you read in the Bible and everything from your Sunday school lessons is like right there in front of you in real life. But the thing that was really interesting and fascinating as we were going around to these places was the level of uncertainty that there is in the actual soil. What I mean by that is, it's like the tour guides would take you to this location that's sort of a biblical location, right? And say, we think that this is approximately where so-and-so would have happened. Even up to the like most significant moment in like the Christian tradition being the resurrection. It's like, we think it could be this tomb, or we think it could be this tomb way over here. Could be this road, could be that road. And I think like I went into like my trip to Israel with this fundamentalist mentality that everything's exact. Right, that if like this is true, or if I should follow it, if I like give my life to it, then I have to be able to pinpoint things exactly and have exact science come out of this. Otherwise, it's not worth my time, or everything kind of falls apart if it's not exact. And so this kind of like could be here, could be there. On the soil had me being like, wait a minute, like what? And then there was another moment where one of our guides said, he said that, he talked about this scripture, like you'll mount up on wings as eagles or whatever, right? And he said that was a modification to the original text, because it would have originally been vulture, because that's what we have here. And I was like, hold on. Wait. What? Wait, so what you're saying is that somebody decided to change something that is, in the Bible. Like I thought it was infallible. I thought nothing changed. So this was like really sort of mind effing to me. I think I can say that. Yeah, because you can just decide what F means to you. Okay. And so I'm like, I kind of started there to go on this journey where I was like, okay, well, I really want to understand. Like I really want to, I believe in God. I've, at this point, I'm like 40 years old, or actually, no, I wasn't even 40. I was in my late 30s. And I'm like, I'm on this pursuit of God and divine goodness and everything else. So I really want to understand more. I really want to know more. I really want to know a little bit more about the history. So I started reading books. I mean, I was devouring books about the Bible, about God, about the history of the Bible, all of these things. And throughout this process of doing that, interestingly enough, I started to also be more attuned to what was happening in the world socially. So like back in 2012, I think it was 2012, when Trayvon Martin was shot, I was working at an Assembly of God church as a worship leader. I was disturbed by it. I took to social media and said something about it. I think I might even use the hashtag Black Lives Matter early on. But it wasn't something that like felt like a part of my life. It felt like I was tuning into a trend from another place, which was the most important place, which was my Christian faith. So I felt like when I checked into Black Lives Matter, I was taking off my Christian hat and checking into Black Lives Matter, until I started to understand the history, the uncertainty, the authenticity of the way the Christian tradition had been shaped, and understanding how political and how justice oriented the whole thing was and is. I mean, one of the moments or the things that I read that really impacted me and really gave me sort of this new way of seeing ideas of justice and why it's so important that if you are a person of faith, that you engage in contending for a better world, was one writer, I don't remember who it was that I read, that wrote, I think it's from a book called The Bible as It Was, which is a book I don't recommend you read unless you're really interested in nerding out on Bible stuff. It's a super thick, it's as thick as the Bible. It's like 600-700 pages, but it's like, I mean, it's a massive ass book. And early on in that book, the author talks about how he makes this statement. He says that for the early writers, that the Torah was the Bible and everything else is commentary. So you've got the first 5 books of the Bible that is like considered the law. This is what we live off of. This is our orientation, which was 5 books about justice, 5 books about how we arrange ourselves in our new society. Now that we're no longer enslaved to Egyptians and we're now free, how do we want to arrange our society? How do we want to behave? What kind of people do we want to become? So there's these laws that becomes the Torah, and then everything following that is commentary on that thing. And that thing is positioned in the center of a society to command them about how to be just. I actually this morning was just watching this old movie came on, and I was drawn to it. First Night with Richard Gere and the late Sean Connery. And I remember watching this movie all the time as a kid. Never paid attention to anything other than like the medieval action. Which, side note, God, Corey, stay focused. No, I'm not going to. Side note, do you think it's strange that anytime in those medieval movies, when there's like a giant sword fight at the end, that the entire war is over as soon as the bad guy gets killed? It makes no sense to me now as an adult. But anyway, so I'm watching this movie, and the bad guy in this movie, he says that the strong rule the weak. That's the way God arranged it. And I never before would have thought about that in contrast to the Torah, in contrast to the whole tradition of faith. That is to say, no.
Sorry, I couldn't.
Siri, I'm not talking to you. The strong don't rule the weak. The strong serve the weak. In a just society, those with privilege, those with means, those with strength, those with power, those with advantage, serve those who don't have it. Take care of those who don't. Make sure that those who don't have enough. Those who have excess, don't take that excess and store it away, as we've talked about before on Existential Sunday, the story where Jesus says, today your soul is required of you, to the dude who built a giant, massive barn and stored everything in it and kept it there, moved himself away from the rest of society. That like those who have a bunch, you have a bunch so you can share some of the excess with those who don't. This is what I learned deconstructing the evangelical ideas that are about sometime off in the distant future after you die, when everything becomes right. So make sure that you don't do this and this and this and this, and you believe this list of things. That was the totality of the evangelical faith that I grew up on. And I started to feel like it's just too small. That God, to use my good friend Andre Henry's words, that God whose best news to you is, I was going to torture you forever, but then I decided to brutalize my son instead. And I still might torture you forever if you don't believe this list of things. If you decide to lay down with this person, if you drink that drink If you smoke that thing, I'll still torture you forever. But the good news is I don't have to if you just believe this list of things. And that just felt too small. It still feels too small. It feels entirely too small. And maybe I won't do a whole talk on hell, but I will say this in this moment. Okay, one of the things that I think is really important for you to wrestle with, if you've not shared this yet, you could share it now, because well, maybe you won't share it because some of you who may be coming from a Christian tradition, maybe your friends would have a really hard time with this. But this is something that we all need to lean in and really think about. When I start thinking about, like, I actually remember the day that the last sort of pillar to fall from my previous fundamentalist, God hates everyone but will love you if you believe these few things way of thinking was the concept of hell, or eternal conscious torment. And maybe I will at some point have to unpack some of this, but I'm not going to today. I remember when I was driving somewhere here in the Bay Area on my way to San Jose, and I was like, I don't believe that. It feels too small. It feels too punitive. It feels too supremacist. It doesn't seem divine to me. It seems like a construct of someone who wants to control people's behavior. It doesn't feel like the big, giant, wide open space and mystery of a divine person, divine energy, divine power. It doesn't feel like that idea fits in there. And I remember thinking, oh shit, this is where former Christians go to die. This is where, like, Christians, when you start messing with hell, they're like, oh, see, I was with you, man. I was with you on the Black Lives Matter stuff. I was with you on the, like, some of the other stuff. But man, you start, like, not believing that fits into the divine story, and like we got to put you over there with Carlton Pearson and Rob Bell and anybody else that's ever gone there. We know we have to move you out of the tribe now. And I just remember thinking, well, I mean, if that's the case, oh well. But here's what I want you to lean in and think about, right? For any of you who have a consciousness, and I'm not even telling you that you're wrong. I want you to think about how cruel it is to be a person who believes that there is a place of eternal, fiery torment for people in the afterlife. I want you to think about how cruel it is to bring any life into the world if you know that that's a possibility. Like, let's just make this an analogy that we can all understand. Let's say you have children, and they're like 3 or 4 year olds. They're learning to walk, they're learning to talk, they're curious about things, and they wander. If you knew that the moment they step outside your door, there was this really awful thing out there that was just going to come for them. Like, if you knew there was a pack of wild lions right outside your door that hadn't eaten, that were just roaming back and forth on your front porch, like, would you ever leave your door open? Like, would you ever, like, would you do everything that is possible to keep those little ones from being devoured by those lions? So if we actually deeply believe in eternal conscious torment forever because you choose or don't choose, or you don't believe the right things, especially for my Calvinist brothers and sisters, those that, like, sort of believe in predestination, I don't understand how you don't see it as utterly cruel to bring life into the world because you don't even know if they can choose or not. So if you are a person who brings children into the world with this idea, isn't that kind of cruel? Like that somebody didn't ask to be alive, conscious, would be that you would bring children into this world knowing that that's out there. I don't know. Something I thought about last night. I mean, I could be, the comments could be blowing up right now, and I'll come back by later and look at the comments, see what y'all saying. Maybe, maybe I'm missing something. It's possible that I'm missing something significant, but that's just my thought. And again, as I'm continuing to continuing this deconstructing, not deconstructed, not like looking to not even, and here's the other thing. I'm not even looking to be reconstructed, to be honest with you. I've had people actually say that to me along the journey, that it's like their hope for me is that I figure it all out. And what they're actually saying, and I mentioned this on the podcast, they're saying, I hope that you can figure it all out and come back to this safe tribe. And I think a part of that, like if you are on a deconstructing journey and you've got people who are genuinely concerned about you, I think a part of that deep down inside all of us is when someone else leaves the tribe and goes elsewhere, if we have any sort of inclination inside of ourselves that there's something better out there or different or worth exploring, but we're just a little bit too scared to do it ourselves, we are projecting our own fear onto the other person and making it out to be their issue when it's really not theirs, it's yours. So some people who've been saying, you'll get it, you'll figure it out, man, in their sort of sometimes passive aggressive or condescending way, I think deep down inside, you're also afraid that there's more to it. Last thing I'll say about this, and I'm going to be done. Thank you guys for watching, sticking with me for 22 whole minutes. There's this movie. If you haven't seen it by now, it's your own fault. Came out 100 years ago. Well, it wasn't 100 years ago, but it, feels that way. Called The Village. If you've seen it, I don't know that it's, to be honest with you, I don't know that The Village is a great movie. The Village is a great concept, a great idea. The Village actually starts with the trailer, because the trailer makes you believe it's about one thing, and then you watch the movie and it's actually about something different. But in the village, these people are living in this small community that's like, what am I trying to say? Maybe like Little House on the Prairie-ish. That maybe you don't know what that is. It's almost like it's like they're living off the land. They don't have any of the amenities. They don't have cars, none of that stuff. Almost like an Amish community. They're living in this village. And at night, there's those we don't speak of, I'm gonna say her name one time, a bunch of Candace Owens run around in the woods to scare people, anybody from the village, to scare them from leaving. So like the townspeople are convinced, some of the leaders of the townspeople have convinced them that there is this great scary threat out there. And so that no one leaves the village, because every time they maybe would think about it, out in those woods, out there somewhere is this really dangerous, scary things we don't speak of. And one day, as the movie goes, a blind girl goes out to find help for someone who's hurting. Man, God, this is, yeah. Goes out to find help for somebody who's hurting. And as she makes it through these things we don't speak of, and find out that these things we don't speak of are actually people dressed up in costumes that are just trying to scare you, she gets over the fence, and there's this whole other world out there. Modern society is there. Come to find out, I think they were living in a zoo or something. And I think that's a real beautiful metaphor for deconstructing. And really even for me as I think about it, because one of the things that I have found through the process of just really trying to understand God at a deeper level and understanding how important justice was to the writers of the Bible that I read. I found there were all of these people from different walks of life, different religious backgrounds, different orientations, social orientations that like were really, really good people and really wanted the same thing that I do. A world that's more inclusive, that's bigger, that's more imaginative, that is liberated from white supremacy and caste systems that drive people to the margins and into poverty, into sickness, into death. Leaving to find help led me to see that there were people who I grew up believing were my enemy or were going to hell, to find that those people were actually indeed on the same side as me, on the same side with the same agenda as the God I believe in. And that there's a bunch of fake ass ideas that exist to scare everybody back into the village, that are modern. They don't even go all the way back to the first writers of scripture. They're modern ideas that are there to scare you back. The most sinister way this happened was in the slave Bible. I've said this before. You guys know, right, that like the slave masters removed Exodus and anything about liberation from the Bible, is that the slaves, the ones that could read, the enslaved people, I'm sorry for even calling them slaves, the enslaved folks, the Bible that the enslaved folks could even read during chattel slavery, scaring people away from liberation, from freedom, from what's on the other side of that thing. So anyway, that's my story. Maybe someday, I wonder if I could find a way for y'all to tell me your stories. Because I'm sure there are people out there who have been, you're on this deconstructing journey, and, I'd love to hear your story. I don't know how you can tell me. Don't inbox me, because that's just a lot of stories to try to go through. Maybe someone watching this can help me figure out how we can collect the stories of the deconstructing to start sharing them. Maybe there's less than I think there are. Maybe there's more than I think there are. Who knows? So let's think about that. Somebody like, man, I'm opening myself for a lot of reading this week, but I do want to read the story. So right now, what I'm saying is, someone come to me with a plan of how we can collect the stories. All right? Grace and peace to all of you. Till next time.